Hey everybody, it's Joe DeGanzik, and this is Smarter Home Life. It is time once again for the monthly Q&A video, and of course a corresponding little article on the smarterhomelife.com website. The questions that will be in this video are generated by people going to smarterhomehelp.com or finding the kind of submit your question form on smarterhomelife.com. Smarterhomehelp.com just forwards you right there. And whether you've just got a basic question, something more complicated, or even you want to set up a dedicated consulting session with me over video, you can do so right there. And the most interesting ones go on these videos. But anyways, let's kind of dive right in. And I've picked a couple questions that are, I don't really want to call them super advanced topics. They're not the super simple questions. And I thought I would do this because I'm about to go to a more advanced trade show for the smart home. That is CEDIA. I'll be heading out to San Diego this coming week, literally in a couple days. Let's dive right into the questions. So the first one is relatively simple. I'll keep the answer relatively short. I was a little bit more expansive in my reply over email. I do get back to you within a few days, usually, these questions coming in. From Andrea, what is the difference from a Crestron system compared to a HomeKit? And I'll add the word system. So this one's actually pretty easy. You have to think, number one, Crestron on one hand, this is the expensive, dealer only, someone else has to install it for you, and you have to procure all these things through, a dedicated, reseller essentially. And then HomeKit, of course, is Apple's proprietary. It's proprietary, yet it does use Wi-Fi and or Bluetooth smart home system for the masses. That's the basic answer. Crestron has been around for a long time, decades. I know this because someone who I was with a long time ago worked for a multi-million-dollar home theater install company that also did home automation. Think the lifestyles of the rich and famous. I got to see some really amazing, beautiful homes back in the day that were very advanced. And back in the day, it's changed a lot from 20, 25 years ago. Crestron, AMX, I don't think Control 4 actually existed back then. Crestron, AMX, and of course a number of the other larger companies that started by doing these proprietary panels and communicating with proprietary hardware for touch screens and dimmers and controllers, and when you had your video projector that would pop out of the ceiling, or TVs that would pop out of credenzas and things like that. I guess that would be flat screens these days. Certainly they didn't do that back then. Plasma was barely coming into an existence in the 90s. But anyhow, Crestron's been around for a long time. They are still around. They do both residential and commercial installs. For commercial installations, they're doing automation for offices and again, TVs that are popping out of credenzas or desks or walls, or screens coming out of the ceiling, and lighting control and so forth. Crestron literally does make their own hardware, so it's not just that they're making fancy touch screens or apps that can run on modern iOS and Android hardware for tablets and phones, but they're also making dimmers and racks and controllers and all that stuff. This is proprietary stuff, whether it's in the commercial or the residential sector. It has to be done through some sort of a dealer. They have to be certified. It's a long, drawn-out process. And you have to think about, this is thousands of dollars. And the dealer-installed systems, one of the things that they achieve that, of course, the DIY route does not achieve is coming to your house or business and asking you a bunch of questions and doing an analysis of, well, what do you want to do? Like, how do you want to connect up these lights, and how do you want this to work, and so forth. They ask all the questions, and then they do all of the work and the analysis and ultimately put this system together for you, which we're waiting on for the DIY side. We're really waiting on AI to be able to do that for us in the DIY space. HomeKit, of course, I think I've explained that plenty on other episodes. Of course, HomeKit is Apple's system. It's built right into iOS, came about in 2014. Lots more products coming out for it. The beauty of HomeKit is for the average consumer, if you just want to be able to automate, assuming that you're in the Apple world and you at least have an iPhone or an iPad, if you just want to automate a couple things and you don't want to have any kind of fancy hub, you don't even want an Apple TV, you just want to press a couple buttons on an app and have it be just really cool, you can just buy a couple of HomeKit enabled devices. and those devices and your iPhone or say iPad will communicate directly. If you want more things such as remote control from outside your home, then you need an Apple TV or a HomePod or an iPad that's plugged into power. There's more options, so that those devices can kind of talk to your Wi-Fi consistently and get signals back and forth if you're not at home. So HomeKit really is an easy way. It is in fact still to this day the only smart home system that is actually embedded, like directly integrated into any kind of operating system. So thank you, Andrea. It's a good question. I kind of like to include these things every once in a while, just so that kind of people understand the basics of what these systems are and why there is such a difference in these systems. Again, it's one side, you got someone else to come help you with your whole smart home, and the other side is it really is do it yourself and read the manuals and good luck with that. So that's it for Andrea's question. We'll kind of just jump into a really quick house ad. Of course, I like to just mention the different ways that you can support Smarter Home Life. It is an operation. It's not a hobby, and so it does take money to run the thing and to buy all the things and upgrade all the equipment and buy different devices to review if I don't happen to get them from manufacturers, and to do some how-to stuff. We've got some really cool content coming up as always. And so if you'd like to, there's a couple different ways to support it. Of course, there's Patreon, which I always mention. It's, you set the budget, $1, $2, $3 a month, and you get some behind the scenes stuff, some cool updates that only the patrons get. And it's a nifty, easy way to support the show on a monthly basis. You can find out more on that at patreon.com/smarterhomelife. But, sometimes people just don't want to make that commitment. So of course, share, Smarter Home Life on social media, Facebook and Facebook and Twitter, of course, the main ones, and I do post a couple of images now and again on Instagram. And then the other side is the kind of the best of both worlds, Amazon with affiliate links and so forth. Most of all the links do point to Amazon that I mentioned, that I talk about different products that are in the articles on smarterhomelife.com or at the on right here on YouTube on all the video descriptions. But if you can't remember all that and you're just doing some shopping any time of the year and you just want to support the show, just go to smarterhomelife.com/Amazon. It'll forward you to the Amazon site with our kind of affiliate code embedded. Do your shopping, check out, and we make 50 cents or $1 or it's some percentage. Amazon kind of hides all that stuff, and that's an easy way to support the show. So I want to keep this little house portion short, and we'll go on to the next question. We'll put in one of those little flash things because maybe I have to sneeze or take a break. So the second question comes in all the way from the UK and comes in from Trevor. So Trevor writes in, I currently have a Nest thermostat and several LifeX lights along with a Alexa, I'll just say Echo, Dot, Show, and Spot. Currently we are having a dining room built at the rear of our home, and I want it to be smart. I am currently considering the Mi Home Hub. That's part of the Mi line of products. I believe he's referring to the Xiaomi line of products from China. And I think those communicate over Zigbee, if I'm not mistaken. I'm currently considering the Mi Home Hub to control smart wall sockets and light switches via Lady A. Are you aware of any gateway problems or conflicts with other systems, i.e. Tato smart radiator valves, that will be fitted at the same time and has their own bridge? Are the frequencies the same, and will Wi-Fi boosters be able to increase these signals? Thanks for a great channel. I've learned so much. Thank you for writing in, and I appreciate the kind words on the content and the channel. Thanks to Trevor for writing in. So the short answer is no, you're not going to run into any kind of wireless problem. And two, Wi-Fi boosters will only boost Wi-Fi signals, or basically the concept is this booster for this type of signal will only boost this type of signal. So that's kind of the short answer. The long answer is, again, if we kind of go back into the frequency chat about these different smart home systems and protocols and Wi-Fi and Zigbee and Z-Wave. So Wi-Fi, of course, we're all familiar with 2.4 and 5 gigahertz. The higher the frequency, the better your throughput, right? The faster data, bandwidth, all those benefits. But the slower the frequency, the better penetration, the longer distance, so it's going to get through walls a little bit better. And of course, it's not going to carry as much data and not as big of a pipe, not as much bandwidth. And the same goes for the smart home protocols that are either, for specific devices. Tado is actually using something called 6LoWPAN, and that's 868 megahertz. That's, again, specifically for the Tado line of products over in the UK. Z-Wave does use 868 megahertz in Europe, but again, I think the Mi Home is using Zigbee. Zigbee runs at 2.4 gigahertz, same thing, same frequency that Bluetooth does. Zigbee and Bluetooth, of course, are standard worldwide, unlike Z-Wave, which has kind of regions that they change. Z-Wave runs at 915 megahertz here in the US. So those sub 1 gigahertz bands are just sending small amounts of data. They're trying to get through walls. It's a longer range in general. And that's where that falls into. Again, Wi-Fi boosters, Z-Wave boosters, Zigbee boosters, you have to boost the individual signals that you want to extend. These days, instead of boosters, it's really kind of a better option to just add Wi-Fi mesh networking with something like an Eero, a Google Wi-Fi. I've mentioned these on the show before. There's a number of brands that are out there, and a couple that are just slipping my mind this afternoon as I record this. And speaking of kind of Wi-Fi and routers in general, Trevor I responded back to him because I respond to your questions, and then the most interesting ones go on the show, but he didn't respond back to my email, which I, expounded on these answers and asked a few questions. So I don't know how large the home actually is, or how large it's going to be now with this dining room expansion. Sometimes it's a good idea these days, especially if you're having a larger home or any spotty Wi-Fi coverage. Instead of just buying some kind of booster, it may be better to just go with the Wi-Fi mesh networking route. I think that basically answers the questions. Again, the Mi Home Hub is going to be using Zigbee, so that's going to be in the gigahertz range. Shouldn't interfere with the Tado. And then the Wi-Fi, of course, is also in the gigahertz range. So overall, I don't think it's going to have a problem. And we got a little lesson on Wi-Fi and Z-Wave and all those those fun frequency things. So anyways, thank you, Trevor, for writing in, and hopefully you do get back to me at some point, and be curious to see what all winds up with your perhaps smart home in your dining room area. So let's move on to the third and final question, which comes in from Panama, and someone named, I'm not sure if it's a he or a she. I'll just say he at this point. Someone named Bienvenido, which of course in Spanish means welcome. So welcome, Bienvenido, to Smarter Home Life. I really like your YouTube channel. Always extremely helpful content. Thank you very much. I apparently have been doing this for a while, so apparently I still like creating content. So just like this. So I started my home automation project last May. So far, I have installed Amazon Echo, Philips Hue bulbs and LED strip, Leviton Wi-Fi switches and dimmers, TP-Link Wi-Fi switches and dimmers, Leadtake, never heard of that one, LED strips, and more recently I added a couple of Sonoff switches as well. I have been able to control everything using Lady A just fine, but now I want to go to the next step and use a SmartThings hub and add some sensors to integrate and control all my devices. And I want to use a SmartThings hub to integrate, control all my devices with sensors. I read that the SmartThings hub is compatible with Philips Hue and Leviton Wi-Fi switches. Yep, no problem. But I'm not sure about TP-Link Wi-Fi dimmers and switches. And I'll get to that here in a second. My question is, am I on the right track by choosing the SmartThings hub? Will I be able to control those aforementioned devices? I live in a condo in Panama, which is made with all blocks and concrete. It is around 6,400 square feet. That is a big condo. Is that the whole building or just yours? That's like, it's huge. It's like more than 10 times the size of this place. So I have to be mindful of the SmartThings hub coverage. I understand that if I have sensors around, they will help cover the areas. Is this correct? Regards, bienvenido. The quick answer is that TP-Link is not officially supported with SmartThings. It's not officially supported with Wink or Lowe's Iris either. It only works with Nest, IFTTT, Lady A, and Google Assistant. Why these companies do not support all of the options? Like they made the investment in programmers to make it work with those other platforms, but not with SmartThings, not with Wink. Sometimes these products are a little bit, and depending on the integration, sometimes I have heard that they're just a pain in the ass, so they'll just choose the easiest route. But I don't get it. This is the frustrating part of the smart home these days. We have all these options, of course. Still, you buy this, you buy a TP-Link, smart plug. It says, oh, it's really small, it's compact, it works with a couple things, but oh, it doesn't work with SmartThings or Wink or any of these other hubs. It just works with the voice platforms, Nest and IFTTT. There is a way, it's unsupported, it's all over the forums of SmartThings, and if you simply Google, does TP-Link work with SmartThings, you will find these answers. In general, if you don't find an official answer that something works with something else within the first half page of Google, it probably doesn't, okay? That's the easy way. So the simple answer is that TP-Link does not officially work with SmartThings. Some people have come up with these middleware solutions. They involve installing special software onto a Raspberry Pi or a PC that has to always be running. And it's kind of a Janksicle Industries way of dealing with it. It's just not really, that's just not the way to do it. The other option is IFTTT. This is the way, kind of the glue that you can use to make things work together that traditionally don't. And I think this is why some companies just opt to say, well, we're going to support a few platforms and we'll support IFTTT. And via IFTTT, we can support all this other stuff without having to do any additional work. I still think it's better to have direct integration instead of a third-party cloud thing, but that's just me. I'm old-fashioned. I like to have things happening inside the home and not have to go outside the home and hit satellites and come back in just to do something. But that's just me. So IFTTT, of course, does support SmartThings. It does support TP-Link, and you can easily go in and create it. You link up all the accounts once you have all this stuff set up, and your sensor devices, specifically, I would think this is what you would want to do. Your sensor devices or anything else on SmartThings can be used as a trigger within IFTTT. So you set it up if this happens, say a sensor goes off on your SmartThings hub, then you say, I want something to happen, such as a TP-Link to turn on or turn off, or if it's a TP-Link light bulb, you turn it to a certain brightness or something like that. That's the way to get around compatibility issues. And that's the same for many different devices. And whether it is IFTTT or Stringify or Yonomi or that new one that people keep emailing me about that I haven't had time to look into. There's another app, another one of these kind of middleware apps called Yeti, I believe. All of those apps can kind of be the glue that holds things together and makes it a little bit easier if this thing does not work with that thing. In terms of sensors and that large of a place, even a 3,000, half the size, even a 3,000 square foot home, you're still going to run into some problems with sensor devices unless they're plug-in devices. And there are one or two of those. I was doing some research before this episode simply because I don't know everything about everything. But in general, purely battery-operated wireless devices will not repeat the signals on a mesh network like Z-Wave or Zigbee because it's too much data, it's too much activity. Products like this I've showed this off before, the cute little, I just lost the brand for a second, the Fibaro motion sensor. This is a Z-Wave motion sensor. Also, for those of you who wonder about battery life, this has been in operation for almost a year on the original battery, still going strong with no problem. So really quite good. Anyways, these little guys, anything that's a wireless sensor, it'll take part in the mesh network, but it will not enhance the mesh network because it's just trying to do its motion sensing and send a quick alert, and that's it. It can't actually just keep repeating the signals all the time of other Z-Wave or Zigbee devices, depending on which technology that you're on. Generally, the powered devices, anything that's plugged in, will repeat signals on the network. That's Zigbee and Z-Wave. Same thing with Insteon, by the way, as well. Kind of the original mesh networking technology. I'll say original, and I'll say that carefully because I'll get emails saying, no, it wasn't. But anyways, they allow devices to be farther away from the hub, assuming, like a SmartThings hub or a Wink hub, assuming that there's something there. So if the range of, say, if we just say to make an even number, let's say it's a 100-foot range for something like Z-Wave, right? If it's a 100-foot range, that means this can only be within about 100 feet of the hub. But say this is on the perimeter of his very large 6,400 square foot house. He has a bunch of motion sensors or light sensors or other kind of sensors around the perimeter of his home, and the hub is in the middle of it. 100 feet, yeah, it's going to be a problem. So as long as there are other powered devices between the battery powered or the not plugged in devices and the hub, then those signals will hop. They will hop as many times as they need to get eventually to battery operated devices that are kind of at the edge of this big circle or the perimeter of his home. So that's how you have to think about it. There are Z-Wave repeaters. There are network extenders that are different from that are not the same as like Wi-Fi mesh. It just extends the mesh network and acts as an additional way for signals to hop from one to the next. When a mesh network is appropriately designed, it works really well because the signals can just hop to wherever they need to go and they're repeated. This is why, again, Philips Hue uses Zigbee. It allows you to place your lights in a lot of different areas, and as long as those individual links, those individual distances between like your Philips Hue lights are no greater than the maximum, single distance between any two devices, you're good to go. So Zigbee, Z-Wave, Insteon, all mesh networking systems for the smart home. And of course, for Wi-Fi, it's a whole different animal because you have to have, a mesh Wi-Fi network. But we kind of already went into that on the second question. So I think that answers pretty much it. Again, 6,400 square foot condo. That is is it a penthouse? I don't know. And I've visited Latin America, so it is interesting how different parts of the world use different building techniques, and a lot of homes in Latin America. I've been into different parts of Mexico as well. They are sometimes made out of poured concrete, and it is tough for signals to get through those kind of walls. So again, you've just got to have the right coverage, the right devices to make sure that works. So that is that. Thank you, Bienvenido, for that question, and that wraps up the Q&A for this particular video and for this month. Send in the questions. Again, smarterhomehelp.com. That's a little form. If you just need basic help, if you need more advanced help, we can do a smart home consultation over video chat. Works really well. I've got many people that I've helped around the block and around the world as well. And some great content, just kind of like I mentioned, just kind of updates and so forth coming up in September. I'll have the CEDIA coverage coming up, and some great stuff as we go into the holiday shopping season. Who knows what else is going to be announced? We've seen some announcements from Philips Hue. They're just killing it with lighting rollouts. Whether we will see additional products from Google and Amazon and some of the other players, new smart locks and so forth, we will see over the next probably month. September is the month for announcements, August and September. Definitely the month for announcements. Then once we hit October, we start seeing ship dates and you'll have things become available. So that's it. I'll wrap up the episode before I start just blabbing. Thank you all for your questions. As always, I'm Joe DeGancic for Smarter Home Life, and I'll see you next time.